1997, the McMenamin family took an old, dilapidated schoolhouse and turned it into a luxury hotel. Welcome to the Kennedy School Hotel. Thank you so much for having me.
Hey, thanks for coming in.
I am so excited to be here.
Appreciate you coming to check out the Kennedy School.
Such a beautiful property.
Thank you.
Can you share with me, tell me about the Kennedy School?
Yeah, the Kennedy School was a sort of one of the closed schools in the area. Hadn't been operating for quite some time, and the city was trying to figure out what to do with it. And so they went through a proposal process where they sort of recruited some local businesses and commercial developers to figure out what to do with it. And with the input from the community and the city and local people in the area. And so we proposed, and they accepted us after sort of lots of questioning and grilling, and we were able to rehab the property, figure out a way to make it work, and open Kennedy School in '97.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, I would love to see this property. Can you take me around?
All right, let's go check it out.
All right.
So here we are in the courtyard, which used to be the cafeteria. We've got lots of light. We've got lots of light fixtures. If you look over the bar, you'll see sort of handmade fixtures from an artist that was operating nearby that we worked with.
Wow.
There's actually some other shades in here. We collaborated with a lot of different local artists within walking distance of the Kennedy School, contributed to a lot of the decor you see in here. Outside, you'll see sort of original courtyard area, which we added a lot of our gardens to. Our gardeners kind of had a lot of fun with it. We've got a tiled fireplace out there.
Wow.
You can sit around. And then inside you'll see we have numerous fixtures, and there's actually spots for more. So the sort of ongoing prospect of what we do is we're sort of always evolving a little bit. So there will be a time we'll come back through and we'll add more fixtures and make it a little more inviting.
That's beautiful. Now, I understand that you guys started with pubs and then you kind of evolved, and now you have different pubs, restaurants, hotels.
Things kept kind of expanding. We sort of started with, on the making side, things that we like to have. So we started with beer, and wine, cider, spirits, and then coffee. And
Wow.
so we sort of we roast, we distill, we ferment, all those sorts of things that kind of complement the areas we have, sort of based around the idea of a community or sort of a pub from the old sort of European model, where prior to the time we started in '83, taverns were sort of a windowless, dark, smoky place where men would hang out and gamble, and it really wasn't an inviting place for family or really anybody else. And so, sort of that was sort of the original thought in the early '80s, and sort of now we started adding other layers, lodging, theater, a soaking pool, small bars. There are lots of different spaces people could come and enjoy, meeting rooms. This property's unique in that it has a community room that people can book and use for different community events. If you live in the Concordia area, you can use the soaking pool.
Wow.
And there's a community garden that's actually part of the property in the corner. It's about 10,000 square feet. People can share a community garden.
Wow, that's incredible.
Just part of Concordia entirely. We just sort of make sure it's clean around it, and that's about it.
Wow, great. Well, I'd love to see some other areas.
All right, let's head out this way. Welcome to the boiler room.
Wow, this is beautiful.
This room in particular was not part of the original opening in '97. We were able to sort of get to it, and a lot of our properties, as we're developing them, have rooms and spaces that we're not quite sure what to do with right away, but sort of reveal themselves as we're open for a little while. This room originally had a Titanic boiler in it. It was so big it took up most of the room. Did not have any of this floor or anything. It was a big open space with just a massive, sort of steel, iron boiler, steel. And the janitor area, sort of custodial area down below, and a tunnel kind of under it that way.
Wow.
We were able to work with Anchor Moisten Architects and a few different artists. One of them, a plumber who's not just a plumber, and he did a lot of this rail art you see kind of right here that we're looking at, and designed this sort of Escher-esque, multiple level, slightly maze-like sort of room for gaming, bar. We have shuffleboard, pool, pinball, a full bar downstairs, and there's some really cozy little spaces for people to hang out in.
Wow. Now, how was that process to remove what was here before with that gigantic?
It was a demolition with lots of really noisy tools and really intense sawing. And we saved actually part of the boiler, which is actually now on the wall right here you see behind you.
Wow.
It's a massive, piece of it, and it weighs an absolute ton. It had to be anchored to the wall without just pulling the whole thing down. But the room had to be completely redesigned to be able to sort of fit all of this equipment in. And we reused a lot of the pieces that were actually in this room already or on property.
I'm sure when you started this process, there was a lot of questions as far as how this was actually going to, like you said, reveal itself, and if it was going to play out in the way that you had expected. How did you have any adversity through your community or anything like that as far as making the plans and deciding to do it, or with funding or anything like that?
I think there was a lot of contribution. We asked a lot of questions. We got a lot of input. We included a lot of artists. And I think there was concern early on. I mean, anytime you open a bar anywhere near a community, they're like, okay, what kind of bars are going to be? What's going to happen? They're going to be drunk people running around at night. And I think after they saw the process play out and the benefit to the community with access to the pool, the community room, and the gardens, I think sort of over time it became a very collaborative thing where the neighborhood really starts to own the building. They sort of hold on, like, this is our spot, and it works out even better. We had to do that to be able to actually renovate this property, which took a ton of work. We had to figure out a way to establish sort of a value of the building and purchase it without spending a lot of our money buying the building, because we knew it would cost 4 times that to renovate it. And so we worked out a deal. My late grandfather, my dad, one of the City Development Commission, PDC, they sort of worked out a deal where we ascribed value to the pool usage, the community garden space we're going to give back to the community, and the community room. And then they were able to work a deal where the building was basically transferred for $1. We sort of paid all the construction costs, but the building, and then the value of the building was sort of figured out with this phantom values of these usage of these areas over time.
Yes.
And so it took about 15 years or 12 years, I believe, for sort of the value of the space of the community gardens, community room, and pool to sort of add up to the value of the building. And at that point, we could have said, okay, we're done with that program. It's just, normal private, or you pay for the use or whatever. But we sort of had not done that, and that probably would have been a really bad idea.
Yeah.
Because we saw the value and how attached the community became to the property. It actually was much more beneficial to the actual Kennedy School. And we sort of since used that in other properties to try to find value. At Anderson School in Bothell, Washington, we have a community pool usage program with an almost Olympic-sized pool. People can swim, take swimming lessons, and utilize.
That's something that's so unique and creative, because I've never heard about a property doing that before. So that's kind of a creative way to introduce options where you can kind of offset those different expenses and things like that, at the same time giving back to your community and building those relationships at the same time, really.
It's an interesting way to think about it, because the most efficient way to do it is just to bulldoze the building and build something new. It's less expensive than renovating and going through the process. So it's a way to try to save stuff and just think about it a little bit differently and sort of make it work. Because at some point it has to work financially, or you can't do it. And so then I think the community really wanted to see the building stay, the school stay, because a lot of people that lived down here had gone to school here. And I didn't want to see it leveled, and then you have condos or more modern development. And so I think that's kind of how you end up with you start working out different ways of doing it. How could we make this work?
That's the question, right? How can we do it, and then making something really amazing.
Exactly.
Well, I'd love to see some more of your property. Can you show me around some other areas?
Let's go.
All right. Don't go anywhere. We've got lots more to show you on Hotel Incredible. Welcome back to Hotel Incredible and the McMenamins Kennedy School Hotel. Wow. Oh my gosh, this is beautiful.
All right, here we are in the theater. We do a few different kinds of movies in here. Second run, we've done some first run events. We'll do speaking events like a history talk or a science pub. People get an opportunity to come in, have something to eat and drink, and maybe learn something.
How many people can you seat in here?
I think depending on the arrangements, and right now it's sort of couches and seating, they can do, I think 250 to 300, and then it can be more depending on sort of what sort of arrangement somebody wants to set up. We've done different styles of events and different types of things in here, and it works pretty well. You have a nice stage and backdrop to work with.
Yeah. And when I checked into the room, it said that with the stay, a viewing is included in that.
Yeah, you're welcome to come in. You get a ticket, and you can come in here and grab a film while you're.
Wow, all of these design elements are so intricate. Was that the brainchild of a specific person, or how did this evolve?
Well, art and design has always been a pretty big part of the company, music, history. We do have an in-house historian who sort of pulls a lot of information out of the prior, sort of what it was, who was there, who lived there. And so each room has like sort of a name and a plaque. You'll see on the wall here, there's a plaque that sort of gives you an idea and a little history on a person or sort of notable character who was part of the Kennedy School. And then that relates to some of the art in the room. So as this person had sort of a Scottish background, you have a little bit of a Scottish tie with Art Nouveau style with a thistle and the tartan pattern. A lot of the art and color comes from sort of the design elements that work with our in-house artists. And my father, Mike, has a very, sort of an idea about what he's looking for. And then he sort of works with the different trades, crafts, and artists to sort of pull out the best that they can bring. Every little detail he sort of will go through. With
so much detail involved, I mean, how long is normally a process for this whole renovation and rebuilding of a property?
Well, some go fairly quickly, but they usually take at least a year or more. There's a lot of planning on the back end, so there could be a year or more of planning, and then during the actual sort of renovation, the physical part of it, that can go relatively quickly. But a lot of people are working, sort of around the clock almost to get it done. There's sort of like once you hit the go button, you got to get open, because if you're not open, you're just sort of you're not able to you're sort of spending money at that point. If you kind of let it slide and keep going, then there's sort of this ongoing process in which there's no customers, but you're still like you gotta keep going. So we try to set very hard dates and just say we're going to be open on St. Patrick's Day, or whatever, some sort of, and try to make it kind of fun. Pick a good day and get open, and that's what we did here.
And do you plan like a big reveal, like a ribbon cutting or any kind of ceremony that kind of goes around that?
This one had one. They actually had the big scissors and everything else. We don't normally do that because this is working with Portland Development Commission.
Yeah.
We've all been a little bit different, and we have done opening sort of celebrations. One of the really fun, memorable ones we did at the Anderson School in Washington.
Now, how many properties do you have right now?
Well, total, we have about 58 in Oregon and Washington. Of larger properties, we have a little more than a dozen as far as hotel and sort of larger lodgy areas. But we're sort of in Oregon and Washington. As far south in Oregon as Roseburg. I guess as far east as Bend, Oregon, which is also an old school, an old Catholic school in downtown Bend. And as far north as Mill Creek, Washington, which is about half an hour north of Seattle. To
be able to do such large projects in such a short amount of time, I mean, I consider a year to turn a property is pretty quick. I mean, it blows my mind how you'd be able to do.
Of course, I'm
sure. Yeah, I'm sure, but it's like I'm so impressed with that and just enamored with the idea of how you're able to coordinate all of these moving pieces at the same time, because these are big projects.
It's bedlam on a property when it's, I mean, there are trades on top of trades on top of trades. You got plumbers and electricians and carpenters, and they're like, get out of the way. And they're like kind of, and they try to play nice, but they can be grumpy. And, so it's kind of like this dance that you kind of do, much like when you're operating in a restaurant or bar, where the bartenders have to work with the servers and the cooks, and there has to be sort of a little bit of a sort of choreographed dance that goes on, just like when you're opening a place or renovating it. And it has to work. It's a collaborative effort. I think the one thing that we know, or we've learned, is that it's the sum of the parts that makes it great, not the individual pieces. And so it's kind of putting it all together and adding layers and layers and layers, which is why we get to here.
That's remarkable. Well, I would love to see another room. Do you have some other space you can show me?
Let's do it.
All right. Don't go anywhere. When we come back, more with Hotel Incredible at the Kennedy School. Welcome back to the Kennedy School and my tour with Dan McMenamin. This is cool.
Here we are in the English wing, which is actually a new building.
Okay.
It's only about 12 years old, but it has a similar feel and look as the rest of the property.
Yeah.
There used to be a sort of a pop-up building that the school put here. It was not historic, so we removed it and sort of put in a building where we could fit the space and have some more hotel rooms. And all the rooms in this wing are named after books. Each room has a plaque on the wall with an excerpt from the book that the room is named after, and the artist elements and themes in the room are all based around the book.
Wow.
So you'll find quotes and art that sort of fit the theme.
So going back to the beginning, I mean, what was the whole inspiration to even start these? I mean, they hadn't been in, you mentioned that the first one was a pub, and then they kind of evolved from there, but what were they doing before? What kind of started this whole concept?
Well, there was a dad had sort of gone to school. He went to school at Oregon State. He sort of worked in some places at Oregon State, and out of school, he and some friends opened a place called Produce Row Cafe, which still exists. And he sort of talks about learning what not to do early on in the process, like they would have wrestling matches in the middle of the dining room, or like throw meatballs against the walls. It was not very busy, or let people know that like if they wanted fast food, they should go to McDonald's. And basically all the stuff you really don't want to do if you want customers to come back or come in. And so over time, sort of learned different things and tried out a few different businesses. Had a European market with imported beer at one point, had a wine distributorship, did a few different things. And then at some point, a little bit later on, my uncle came on board, the two brothers, so my uncle Brian and my dad Mike, and they started some pubs. And it was just based around that sort of English European style, or Irish, or sort of European style pub or cafe, if you will, where anybody could come in and families were welcome, and it was accessible for anybody, the public house. And we had about 11 locations. We did have one historic, the Mission Theater was one of the historic properties. A second-run theater downtown, had been a church, had been a longshoreman hall, had a few different sort of, had a theater troupe at one point. And sort of started to get an idea like there's other elements we could start layering in. And then Edgefield was sort of the big happening when this property became available. It was an old poor farm, which at the time, in the teens and 20s, if you were destitute, didn't have a place to go, you could live there with your family. You could work on the farm and learn a skill and earn money. And then when you were ready to go, it's kind of a early transitional housing type thing during the Great Depression era and before, people could kind of work their way up and get back on their feet. And it had been vacant for quite some time. I remember going out there when I was a kid. We'd go out there and it was boarded up and people were out there, partying, and you kind of go, and then mom's like, don't touch anything. Like look at the spaces, and it's like, and Dad saw this opportunity where it's like, this could be way more. We could have gardens, we can have a brewery, a winery, we can do a theater, we can do a pub, we can do lodging. We weren't able to do it all at once, and it was a slim chance to get it open in the first place because banks were not interested in that sort of prospect. They're looking at it going, what are you doing? Nobody does this. And we were able to get it going. And it started with some production, with a brewery and some winery, and then we got the pub going, and then eventually the lodging. So that was kind of in stages opening it up. We didn't really have the financial firepower to get it open. But at the time we were doing it, and you did it, try to figure out a way to make it work. So we had artists living out there, sleeping out there, painting every bit of wall, doors, everything. It was just like, just go. And it wasn't quite as directed as it is now. We had the history part of it going. They were getting direction as far as like, okay, with respect to the area, the history, what was out here, let's sort of go on that theme. And it's gotten more detailed as we've gotten further along in the process, as we've had more experience with our historian and our artist team kind of working together with my dad's direction and sort of like input, kind of getting a little more detailed and a little more advanced in kind of how we approach a property.
How important do you think his passion was in that whole process of selling the idea, when you said that a lot of the banks were like, hey, we don't want to touch this, we can't imagine it. And then, I mean, was he persuasive in his passion, or how did he sell them?
I think so. I think it was vital because, I think at first you have to have the belief yourself that it could be something. And I think it starts there. And I think at some point, if somebody can see that you're confident that I see something that can happen here, I know what we can do, I have an idea, we got to do this, and it gets people excited about it. And the inspiration for our locations comes from so many places: art, music, history, just kind of fun in general, and then the community. And it's the people that make up any of the places that put it together, make it able to happen. And so I think that becomes infectious when you start talking about it. It's like, yeah, let's do this. Let's.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of, I think, where that sort of starts.
And it seems like that kind of rolls over to your culture too, of even your employees, the people who are working here, the community. I just feel like the sense of everyone's kind of tethered together in that common goal and that common culture.
Yeah, but we wouldn't be who we are without our employees. No chance. It wouldn't be possible. We have amazing employees, a lot who have been with us for a long time, that I think see something a little bit different. Despite the trials and tribulations of the last few years and over the years of things that have happened, that this is something. It's something special.
It is something special.
Yeah. Well, thanks for coming in for the tour. I hope you learned a little something about the Kennedy School, maybe the company.
Oh my gosh, I had such an incredible time here. Everything is so different and unique and full of life and energy.
Excellent.
And you guys have put so much thought into this and just making everything so creative and just pulling out the history of the property at the same time, adding your own flavor and energy to it. So I think that's amazing.
Thank you. I think it's just an ongoing process, and we're going to keep adding, and it doesn't stop.
Oh, that's amazing. Well, thank you so much.
Thanks for coming in.
Yeah, I
Good to have you.
appreciate it. Wow, what a remarkable place. I'm so inspired by the way the McMenamins have taken these historic buildings and turned them into something truly beautiful. I also love how using local artists and historians have allowed them to give each room such unique character. And finally, what makes the Kennedy School exceptional is how they've given back with community spaces such as the soaking pools. Well, that's it for this episode of Hotel Incredible. I'm Brandy Connor. See you next time.